So this is going to be an overview of APIs that are available to you as a JavaScript programmer. And the first question is, what is an API? Does anyone know what an API stands for?
Application programming interface.
That's correct. Yes, thank you. API stands for Application Programming Interface. And recently we talked about plugins, which are bits of code, units of code that you can essentially easily integrate or plug into your program, and then it's going to perform a certain functionality. But if you need to actually work with a program at the programming level, you not use a plugin, you actually use an API. So APIs allow humans to interact with programs. And when you need to accomplish a certain task, there are different sets of APIs that go with different functions. For example, I keep on talking about this because I'm looking into it. The Seattle Public Data is an open source data from Seattle area that you can gather information, and they have their own API that you can use to mine the data. This is one example. Google has their own APIs with Android. And so today we're going to look at APIs that you can use with JavaScript.
It's like another API would be like not MySQL, but like the one that accesses MySQL, which is PHP-MyAdmin.
PHP-MyAdmin?
Not really, because the data exists inside that program. It's not just like the program accessing the data.
Right. So I think that's a little different. There may be some APIs within, but the APIs are essentially code you write.
Okay.
So it's not an application, it's the code you write to accomplish a certain task. Right. I'll show you some examples here. Okay, and so the API essentially is going to provide a structure of what you need to do to accomplish a certain goal. Let's say, as I keep on giving this example, my goal is to get data. Actually, one of my other students saw the Android app to get crime statistics for Seattle area. And so to get the crime data from the public data of Seattle, he used an API. And then he had to follow the structure of the API in order to get access to this data. So this is how this works.
Is there a specific language for APIs, or can APIs be built with all different
No, they can be
languages?
built in different languages. It's a higher level concept. So you can have an API written in JavaScript or Java or, and sometimes, with the example with the data, they might have different set of APIs for different languages to do the same thing so that you can work with the data no matter if you're a Python programmer or Java or JavaScript.
Thank you.
Good question. All right, so I'm going to breeze through a variety of APIs with the goal of making you familiar with them. And if you want to know more, then you go and research on your own. And then we'll spend a little more time looking into the Angularjs when we get to it. So for example, there is a set of HTML5 JavaScript APIs. And the kind of features that you can accomplish with the HTML5 APIs are, for example, getting the GPS, getting access to accelerometers or cameras, and also software functionality such as storing objects in the browser, working with files, or working with Canvas, which is a Canvas is a visual element that you can add with HTML5. It's a vector-based visual element, right? So each of these, if you decide you need to use it, you need to go and look up the API and the description of what it does and how to do it. The format is included in the API. Another popular API is feature detection. So for example, you need to check if a certain browser supports a certain feature, and there is an API called Modernizer that you can include as a script, and it's going to do this checking for you. Geolocation APIs, it's very common to use the user's location for if they allow you to get certain information, and then you can customize the result you're presenting them with. And so you can do this with the geolocation API. And then you have to deal with permissions. So the user has to allow you to use the data before you can use this API. So that's definitely part of the setup of the API permissions. There are some APIs that allow you to actually store data in the browser in the form of sessions, and they can only be accessed from the domain that says the data. So I think Aaron knows what we mean by when we say a session. While your app is open, the data that you're using is stored in the browser. And there is HTML5 API to make this possible. If you wanted to work with the user's history, then you can use the history object and the related API, and then you can mine what the user did and perhaps customize, whatever your goal might be to accomplish. So I covered jQuery here, and we don't really have time to cover jQuery UI. We do cover jQuery UI quite in great detail in Web 130, so the two of you in this class will learn it. The rest of you, if you're trying to do, if you're building a web front end, such as maybe some tabs or something like that, I encourage you to check out jQuery UI on your own because it's very easy to use. It's extremely easy and powerful, and it's a library that sits on top of the jQuery library. So even though we didn't cover it in class, I do recommend that you cover it. And since it's very similar to jQuery in the way it's structured, it should be easy for you to cover it. I don't think I covered jQuary UI, did I?
In our assignment, we had to use 3 jQuery UI.
Oh, okay.
Accordion,
Great.
widget,
So, I know what I'm talking about. All right. So that's very
But
easy.
there's the jQuery mobile that I saw as well. We should do, but I'm sure it's the same as UI. But
Well, it's different, it's similar, but not the same. And we are also going to cover jQuery Modal in Web 130. So yeah, on jQuery, there are jQuary UI sits on top of it and jQuery Modal. jQuery Modal is strictly for mobile websites. So if a company decided that they want to redirect the user to a mobile website directly, strictly for mobile, then they use you'd use jQuery Modal to develop the site. It's again super easy to use and similar to jQuary UI. I think what happened is I didn't actually cover it in class, but because I just pointed you now and remember. Okay, great. Wonderful. And then Angularjs, who has heard of Angularjs?
I've heard the term, but I couldn't describe it.
Yeah, I saw it on the Google source, but I don't know what it is.
Well, there's a lot of buzz around Angularjs. When we had the job fair, I talked with the one tech company that was present, I forgot their name, Salmon maybe or something like that. And the recruiters who didn't really know what it meant, but they kept on saying you should know Angularjs. So it's definitely a buzzword.
at the Web Dev Conference the day before, which wasn't open to the public, they had like 2 out of the 6 were on AngularJS.
Which was that conference?
The one at Amazon.
Okay.
And what's interesting is the day that I went to was open to the public. The one before it had 6 conferences were only for employees, and they had 2 were on AngularJS.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. It's very convenient and easy and powerful. So, well, it essentially makes it very easy. It's a framework. So, what is the difference between a framework and a library? I would say that. What is your answer?
Isn't a framework kind of like a class? And a library is like actual data. Like a class like defines the object, like what's going to go in it, but it's just a structure. It's not actual names.
A framework is abstract like a class, but it's a lot bigger. I would say that a framework contains a lot more. It's a lot more powerful. So if you have a library, but a framework is just like the biggest level of entity you can have. That it can do a lot more. So it's the highest level of organization.
So it's bigger than a library? You're
I don't think so. I think within a framework you can have different libraries. Yeah. Okay, and so it's especially powerful because as we know JavaScript is a client. We can only be using on the client side. It's a client language. But with AngularJS, you can actually use it to read, write, update, and delete data in the database. The read, write, update, and delete are the 4 fundamental database operations, also known as CRUD. We call this at some point CRUD. Create, read, update, and delete. And so it allows you to do the fundamental operations with the database, which is very powerful. It's based on a software pattern called the Modal View Controller, or MVC. What a coincidence. We were just talking about it in PHP. And the Modal View Controller essentially separates the concerns the same way as we, on a web page, on the front end web page, says we want to separate the CSS from the JavaScript from the HTML because they address different concerns, right? What concern does HTML address?
The markup and the physical layout on the page.
The structure of the layout, okay? And CSS addresses
That's
the
the style language.
style, and JavaScript the
Functionality.
interaction or behavioral functionality. Great. And so in this same manner, when applications are not only front end but go to the server, what we want to do is we want to, it has been recognized that it is successful to separate the user view from the model, which represents the backend or the database, and then the controller, which essentially corresponds back and forth between the view and the model. So the view is the user side of things, and they can be different views, which is worth noticing. You can have a view as a user, and then you can also have a view as an admin, right? So these are two different views, but they're still views. And if you make a change from the view, for example, you have a form where you update the quantity of your purchase to 3. The controller is responsible to take this number and update the database. And then on the other hand, you ask for a query, do you have, I don't know, the Harry Potter movie in your inventory, the book. And then there is a query that gets performed in the database, and then it sends back the response, and the controller is responsible for updating the front end or the view, okay? So I won't really talk much more about it, but I'll tell you that this is a very important notion, and I think you might get asked about it in a job interview. It's quite likely, so maybe if you take in Java 2, then we'll talk more about it. All right, so here is an example of Angularjs. Essentially what you do is you use templates and you use attributes such as ng. Ng, by the way, stands for, you'll never guess, Angular. Oh, so if you see ng prefix here, this means this is an Angular attribute. And so this is a ng model attribute and another model for the message. And then you will see if you look at source code, all these spots with curly braces around them. So what happens is when you make an update in the model, you actually get the spot in the curly braces is going to get updated to the proper data. And Angular is imported. There is a CD and you can download it, but you can also import it from Google APIs, as Mike pointed out. So we'll come back if there's interest to do a couple examples with Angular. But first, let me tell you about some other the so-called platform APIs. So you can work with JavaScript with all these Facebook, Google, or Twitter, for example. Flickr, I think we have an example of Flickr here last time. And then you get these APIs that you can work with. The example we did with Flickr used actually the Flickr API. So I had to know what Flickr expected in terms of format and arguments. And then I fulfilled their expectation, and then we were able to communicate through JavaScript or jQuery using JSON with Flickr.
I was gonna say I was looking for plugins, and I found a guy who created an API that goes into Flickr and takes your album. Like, so he created it, even you're using the password, it'll go into your album, pull your photos, and put them in whatever order you want. But I remember looking through the code, and it was like, put in your API, like whatever number here, and I started doing it, and then I realized they give licenses to people who create APIs. So like that was his license for his thing. So if I got one and put my number in there, it wouldn't work because it was like basically they given him permission to create an API for them.
So, right.
Interesting.
That is interesting, and that reminds me the Google gives the developer console as well, where you get to register and actually get to pay for it.
Yeah, and I think with Flickr, they were saying submit a request of why you want it, and then they said we'll get back to you in 48 hours. So it wasn't even like an instant thing, which I'm glad it wasn't instant because I probably would have done it thinking I needed to. Kind of like when you do a capture recapture, you have to get the keys and put them in.
Right.
That's what I thought it was, but it wasn't.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting example. And sometimes you get to get the approval.
But I thought it was interesting. He created it and then went to them, and I think in the developer side it said we'll usually give it to anybody if it's not for money.
Yeah.
So the guy just made it because he wanted it for his website, I guess, and then he shared it with other people, and you can use his API.
Just don't make any money.
Yeah.
That's all.
Not allowed.
Right. Unless Flickr can get it cut.
Exactly.
Okay, well, this was now actually the overview of the APIs. And as you can see, using any of these can make your app a lot more powerful, and it's a lot more easy to use an API rather than having to code this from scratch. So what we can do now is we can call an API, an Angular example. Maybe what we should do is call this very simple example so you can see actually how powerful it is. And then I'm going to show you an example of getting that from a JSON file with Angular again to illustrate how much more easy it is compared to the example we did last time. By the way, you probably did not test this at home, but Russ, before he left last time, he uploaded the JSON file to his Edison. To his server.
It was Dreampost.
Okay, to his server, and it works. So if you have a server, you may want to upload it. Maybe create like a sandbox private folder that people don't know about, upload it there, and then you can see the JSON data actually getting displayed in the browser. Okay. All right, so let's do one example here. You need to grab a couple files. Well, let me see actually for the introduction here. Yeah, okay. Please go to week 11 and download the images folder. And again, you have to take a look. Everyone, please take a look up here to save time. So you need to pop out. If you're not able to just download, you need to pop out this page and then click on the download button, right? Are we still sharing the screen?
Yeah, sure.
And then extract files. Create your project folder, Angular or whatever you want to call it, and then you can move the images folder that you unzipped in the Angular folder. And we also need to save the CSS file. So I posted the link to it here. Just copy and paste. And it will go under the CSS folder, co9.css, just copied the content and I'm going to save it as a file.
Which file you make?
All right, so first of all, you need to set up the project folder, right? And then copy the content of the CSS file and save it in the CSS folder as c09.css. Right? So in your Angular, my folder is called Angular for the project. Right now you should have an image folder, or actually I have a double image folder. So I need to fix that real quick.
So do we get the Angular HTML?
Well, we haven't gotten to this yet. So what I've asked you to do was to create a project folder.
Yes.
And in the project folder, you have the image folder and the CSS folder. Is everyone there?
Yes.
Okay. Then we're going to create a new file and save as Angular intro or ANG -intro.html. This is a pretty quick example. Okay, so let's create our HTML file. So in the HTML tag, we're going to say ng-app, which means that this is an Angular JS app. Angularjs example. Link to the style sheet. And next we need to grab the Angular JS CDN link, which is going to go in the head. So let's go to Google, the browser, and search for Google hosted libraries. Is the same place as the jQuery Angular. And sure enough, here is a snippet for Angular. And then paste in the head of the document. Okay, so far so good. And then let's add the body. Okay, so header first, Angular EX, div with a class of third, which just has to do with some formatting. And then P with a class of welcome. Tell your friends to join. So this will be a form we're about to create. So form tags. To input. So input field in the form, which is going to have an ng-modal attribute, which is equal to name. And the type is equal to text. So we're mixing here HTML and the Angular, what we call directives. Okay, close the input. Break. Message. Text area. This is going to have an ng model directive of message. Close the text area. The input type submit with the value of send message. Close the form. Close the div. And add another div with a class of 2-thirds. And a div with a class inside it, a class postcard. You should have an image background that works according to plan. In the postcard div, add another div. And in this div, add a couple curly braces to the word name, and then close the curly braces. And also add a paragraph. Message. Div with body and HTML. So hopefully you can see that there is a correspondence between the name of the model attribute, ng model, message, and name.
You got a typo on 2/3.
Thanks. All right, so let's save this and see what happens here. These brackets will allow. Okay, it didn't display my image, but all right. So as you can see here, as you're writing one part of the page, which was the Angular directive, the content is getting displayed in the second part. But I would like to understand why we're not seeing those images. It's not really of paramount
I
importance.
have it, but I don't know how to advise.
Do you have the image?
Yeah, I have my image.
Your code, your file like
Oh,
this,
yeah. There you go.
Yeah. I just.
Let's try this again. Okay, well, that's much prettier. So now we can, now it's going to be more meaningful of a demo, right? So now if I say to Tani, this is, I was going to actually, do you know the brace yourselves meme from
Yes.
Game of Thrones? I was going to make, I actually did it, but I didn't know that has to do with funny. I almost made the meme that says brace yourselves, finals are coming.
Nice.
That's a lot.
Final, brace yourselves.
Public work.
Finals are coming. All right, so you can see here the connection between the data in the, that you can, essentially in this very little example, the model is in the same page as the view, right? So basically the form is both the model, because this is where we get the data from, and then it gets displayed here in the view. Right? So that's very easy, wouldn't you say?
Is that code in the book?
Yes. Did you have trouble finishing it?
Well, it doesn't work.
Okay, let's take a look. Did you try running it in the, it's again JavaScript, so see if you can.
Well, here's what happens. I don't have the image. I don't see where it's referring to the image.
The
Oh, I
images
see.
are
It's
set
in the
up in the
CSS.
CSS as a background, that's correct.
Modal.
So let's take a look at it. So you fix the mic error.
Let's go to.
I'm sorry, which one?
Oh, it hit me, all right. Let me take a look at it. It looks like you had some HTML,
click on program.
maybe typos?
Let's look at your code again.
I just realized I put mine in the folder.
I'm
of
just
my
gonna
image.
code it real quick. I think we have a broken script tag.
Oh, a little thing. Yeah.
So close the,
Closing.
this will do it.
Isn't it nice
Yeah,
to have
it's
that,
immediately
that
not
red
showing.
thing?
I think it's already showing.
All right, so sounds good. Let's see.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Thank you. So you still have some other issues because this will not show,
Oh, I
this will show as
see.
blank, so we can go
When I
back
dropped
and
it
take a
in
look and see. But,
Thank you.
okay, since I do want you to have, I wanted to have some time to work on what you need to work on, but I want to show you the example with Angular and JSON just to compare and contrast with the example we did in class last time. Remember how tedious it was to do all this formatting? So let's just look at the source code together. Unless there are any questions on this here.
I have some problem, I don't know.
Okay. And this is just this is a very limited introduction, of course. If you want to know more, you can go to the Angularjs.org and learn a lot more. Let's take a look and see.
I think what's going on. Your link line, you have link href instead of rel, and should be link rel instead of href.
Oh, yeah. Fix that, but it doesn't come.
Yeah, so
CSW11.css.
Yeah, this is my CSS.
Okay, so I think it's div. Where is this div starting? Highlight it so we can see where it starts. Say form. You should have form.
There's probably my syntax on it.
They
channels have the same issue.
so the same message. So this div supposed to get no. No, you don't have to.
Use the curly brace.
I have
You see-
problem. I think my
okay.
problem here. Found it. And
Oh, you didn't have the directives. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
pretty much here. This
HTML5
So maybe do you have h-app on the HTML?
No,
Here?
Maybe
yeah,
this
it
is-
was that.
Okay. So you have to tell if this is an Angularjs app.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Did you save it?
So yeah, ng dash
That's it. Yep, the problem.
app.
ah,
Because we used to use
So this
the
means
HTML
that this is an
formula.
Angularjs app. Right? This HTML5 is an
That's
Angular
good.
app.
that took away
That's how
that
it
name.
happens.
Good eyes, Miss.
That's nice.
Or discoveries. Dwayne. Good eyes.
Okay.
Let me show you something else. Real quick.
Piano actually found it. Wait a minute, this thing, oh, wait, right?
It doesn't really put anything else. HTML. It's not used to.
It's referred to in the CSS.
Okay, take a look at this example. So this example is using JSON on the back end to represent the database. And as you can see, the database is the model. So our model is going to be a JSON file. It might as well be a database, it's just not. And it's going to do the same task that we did last time in class. It's going to grab data from the JSON file and then display it on the page. And this is what, yes,
So like this type of activity would be really good if you had like a website with lots of products that like you need to get people information on your products. You could put it through there.
absolutely. I mean, it's very,
And it would update in real time, like with our class schedules.
that's right. That's exactly right. So let's see, to start looking at this, we actually need to look
Where
at
you
the,
at?
I was actually just going to look at the code online. We are not going to do this together right now. So go to chapter 9 source code,
Yes.
but I do want to show you the, let me see here. Okay. 1 second. Well, chapter 9 / JS /
Yeah, what did
icons. Okay, so take a look here. I was able to
Oh, it's in.
open the JSON file online so I can show you. So we saw a JSON file last time in class. Maybe I'll put this in brackets so you can see it. So you don't have to do anything. I'm just going to show you. Here is a JSON file, and remember how it's going
Oh,
to
it's
present.
the history of the entry, right?
No, it's the list.
It's the list.
So this is a JSON file. So do you remember what is the purpose of a JSON file? Aaron,
Store data.
it's going to store. It's like a data
That's what I'm
storage.
saying, the history of the data when the user keep checking.
Well, this is not really. Yeah, I guess you can call that. So it's the sessions of for the different. It's data. It's the data for the sessions. How many? There are several sessions, and they all have properties: time, title, and detail. Right. So this is what the JSON file looks like. So again, we have a JSON object, or JSON array rather, with several different sets of data, correct? So we're going to have to do a loop here in order to loop through the entire JSON file. But all the sessions have the properties of time, title, and detail. All right. So if we look at the we now understand what the JSON file contains. And here is the HTML file. So again, we have to include Angular. We have to indicate that we are using Angular by adding the ng-app attribute. And then in our HTML, we have indicated that we have a controller So the controller again is the middle piece between the view and the model in the MVC model. In this case, the controller is actually a table, because what happens is you can put data in the table in HTML, which is the view, and it will update, and the other way around, right? In this case, we're going to update from JSON file and display in the table. But this table acts as the controller here, and we have given it the name of timetable control. And we have the data is going to be stored in table data cells. And the way you create a loop in AngularJS is by using the ng-repeat attribute. So you actually don't have to do a loop. You just have to say, I want you to repeat. This is the name of the object, and this is the variable that you use. The same way, so the name of the variable doesn't really matter. What matters is whatever you use here, you have to use it consistently inside your curly braces, because it's going to be like a placeholder to refer to the data in the JSON table, right? So it knows to grab the time, title, and detail. And what is happening behind the scenes is a for each loop through an array that is going through the enumeration inside the array. And by the way, note that right now there is nothing displayed here, right? It's all a template, so we don't have, the HTML is not displaying anything by itself, right? However, we saw that when we look at the page, it has data displayed. And so this happens through here, through the JavaScript JS file. And we have a function, timetable control. This is the name of the controller from the HTML, and we pass it two attributes, the scope and the HTTP or HTTPS. And then once we are here, we can use the AngularJS set of JSON methods in order to access the data in the JSON table. So we say HTTP, $HTTP, behind the scene, this is still going to resolve to the XML HTTP request protocol I showed you, remember? So we've learned how to do the same thing in JavaScript, jQuery, and now AngularJS, and it's just getting easier and easier, right? And then we're going to chain. So the first part here is we're going to get the file. It gets the file items.json. One peculiarity is that the reference is actually from, even though this resides in the JavaScript file, the reference is as if this was the HTML file. So you need to be aware of this, right? Technically, you could just be able to say items.json because you're in the JavaScript file, but it's resolving it as if it's in the HTML file. And then we use chaining, method chaining. And then, so it's going to get the file. If this succeeded, then we're going to call a function data and then set the scope .sessions with the data.sessions, which is coming from the JSON file. If there is an error, then we're going to log an error to the console. So it's very straightforward. If you have learned everything we have talked about so far, if you know what chaining is, if you remember about the JSON protocol, as the XML HTTP request protocol, you can see that you can appreciate how easy this is done here. And the result being that when you look at the code, or when you run rather the file, it's again, we didn't have anything on our HTML page, but now we have the time, title, and detail from the, where do they come from? Just to make sure you don't lose someone. Where did this data come from?
The .json file.
The .json file, right? Okay. All right, well,
And it did like a for each loop in the background.
No, it doesn't because you use the ng repeat directive. So if you look in the source here, the loop is done because of this here.
Yeah.
This is the loop.
And but okay, so you don't really like because it's all backend. It's like it just happens. Like they chose the type of loop to use, so that it just does it till the data runs out.
It just knows. Yeah, it knows to. It's the same as a for each, right?
Yeah.
It's a loop that iterates through an array and it knows
When it's done.
when to stop. Exactly. So you don't have to even be concerned about stopping it. You just have to tell it which property from the object do you want to use. And in this case, we want to use all three of them. Yes,
They're saying that Angular is becoming widely adopted. Like a lot of people are using it.
right.
But I think that's really simple.
This is really simple.
Yeah.
Well, there is a lot more to it. I mean, you have to learn how to do a lot more in the context of directives. A lot of people are using it. It's very popular. There is also a lot of legacy code still that uses PHP because not everyone wants to invest in upgrading, but definitely it's becoming more and more popular. Let's take a look at the website and then it will be just time to take a break and then you can work on your projects. So I think it's like okay, so by the way, I didn't mention this detail. Google created this framework.
I don't know if I missed something. Can I ask where is the data
Yeah,
API?
for example,
Yeah, the API store for free.
for Angular.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I showed you that you can go to the Google hosted libraries,
Oh, okay.
the same as with jQuery.
Okay.
And then if you import this link here, this is where it's stored.
I
You
see.
can also download it. If you wanted to download it, you can download it from here.
Oh, it's the same, right?
Yeah, it's the same. So that's where the APIs are stored.
Okay.
The
Can have a
framework.
huge amount data container.
So we just decide to use the CDN rather than using it. And if you wanted to learn more, then you can look at all these Google Docs, just like me looking at them. I'm not sure where's the entry points, but anyway, you can find out a lot more. But this is probably a good place to start digging through and learning more. Here we go. There's actually a tutorial here. I'm also seeing Angular getting tied in together with other technologies. There is a technology by Google called Firebase, which is related with developing Android apps. They just provide the environment. So they're putting out all these videos about using Firebase with Angular. So I think we're seeing a lot of incorporation of Angular in other technologies as well. Okay, that's all I have. You can take a break, do your project work for the remainder of the class session, and I'll see you on Wednesday for the presentation. So look forward to it.
So you done today?
We're done with the
I'm
lecture.
gonna check out your website so far.
Thank you.
It's